Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Inside CRCAIH. Today we have a special guest with us, Dr. DenYelle Baete Kenyon, who's the CRCAIH Program Director. Dr. Kenyon, welcome.
Thanks, Chad.
Part of the CRCAIH mission statement is to improve American Indian health through examination of social and environmental influences on health. Can you give some examples of social and environmental influences on health?
Sure. Well, to take a step back, there's two parts to the CRCAIH mission. So one part is to build up tribal infrastructure to do research, and the second part is to increase research in social determinants of health to improve American Indian health. So determinants of health are any factors that contribute to a person's state of health. So these factors can be biological, they can be socioeconomic, they can be psychosocial, behavioral, lots of those types of impacts. But what we're focusing on here with CRCAIH is those social determinants of health, so the non-biological circumstances in which people live. So that economical, political structure, social, environmental impacts, and cultural conditions that affects the health of the individuals. So, and it's a lot of these conditions that impact the health inequalities that people experience. So social determinants of health are really those life-enhancing resources, such as like food supply and access to quality food and housing, economic and social conditions that people live in, transportation, education. So if you think of social determinants of health, there's two different levels or two different types. There's structural determinants, so these are the systems and opportunities. So think of like the bigger overall structures of a nation that really influences social inequalities and impacting health. So if we're comparing the U.S. to our neighbors in Canada and Mexico, looking at those factors that go into differences in economic and job opportunities, the different healthcare systems, and different educational systems. And then the other level of social determinants of health that is more, it's called proximal, those are ones that are more easily impacted and is what a lot of our research under CRCAIH looks at. So those are the circumstances of daily life that impact people's health. So this can range from like quality of family environment to, again, that food access, housing, recreation, and physical activity that result from those structural differences. So if you look at healthy family environment and healthy early childhood education, those types of things would be examples of social determinants of health.
Thank you. How does CRCAIH help influence these?
Mm-hmm. So under that second part of our mission, we impact and fund research in a couple of different ways. So we have three bigger research projects that are headed by Dr. Lyle Best, Dr. Nancy Fehrenwald, and Dr. Susan Pumala. So these three research projects are 5-year full-scale projects, and all of those look at social determinants of health for American Indian populations. Lyle's looks at the asthma environment for children, so he's looking at how biological factors influence that home environment and those interactions. Nancy's project focuses on kidney donation education for folks that need that, and looking at how they've developed an education for family members and others to try to get people interested in donating kidneys for people on renal failure. And then Susan's project looks at that healthcare angle in looking at implicit bias and the quality of healthcare for American Indian kids in emergency departments throughout the region. So they're all of those projects are looking at very different social determinants of health and how those may factor into inequalities for American Indian health. So that's one big way that CRCAIH is funding innovative research throughout the region. The other part is through our pilot grants program, and right now we've just funded our third round of the pilot grants program, where we release an RFA every year and solicit applications that are externally reviewed. And given the funding available that year, we utilize those scores and fund those various projects. And those topics have been on a range of great focuses on social determinants of health for American Indian health. So that, right now, we're up to 13 pilot projects that we funded. We've got, the ones funded this year are looking at examining food access on reservations. We've got some diabetes prevention and prenatal care, early childhood environment. In the past, we've had projects that have looked at physical activity, looking at the impact of historical trauma and socioeconomic status on quality of life. We have a project looking at parenting in a couple of ways, projects looking at parent attachment as well as the parent home environment. So we've just funded a lot of different topical areas and innovative new pilot projects across the North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota region.
So if people want more information about those projects, they can find those on our website, is that correct?
Yes. So the great thing about these projects, everything is, all of that is on our tab under pilot grants. And I was going to mention the first year pilot projects, those folks have come here at Sanford, and many of them spoke at our summit. So we also have those seminars housed on the website, and those findings are just coming out now, so we're really excited to see those their results from their projects being released, and we have some great results from methodology type papers and projects that are looking at implicit bias and microaggressions in healthcare, looking at a mindfulness intervention with youth. So yeah, some great findings that are housed on our website under the pilot grants and the resources page.
And that's at www.CRCAIH.org, www.CRCAIH.org. All right, Dr. Kenyon, one final question for you here. What are the next steps for CRCA?
Yeah, well, so for CRCA and looking at how do we keep building research and social determinants of health, we're really excited to kind of disseminate the findings from the research that we funded. So as you mentioned, looking at those publications will be forthcoming. Our Community Engagement and Innovation Division is going to be working with all of our investigators to how do we get these findings out to the communities and give those results out broadly, not just in peer-reviewed publications, but in national presentations as well. Some of the projects have been presenting findings all over the place. So I think under CRCA broadly, we see continuing the work and funding individuals throughout the regions and building collaborations at the national level is very important, and continuing to really focus on those social determinants of health that can be impacted by interventions. So all three of those bigger research projects, they all have an intervention component, and many of our pilot grants also have an intervention component. So once we can get evidence-based interventions out into our communities, that's where we'll be impacting those health inequalities for American Indian populations.
All right. Well, thank you very much, DenYelle. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Hopefully you join us next time for our next episode of Inside CRCA. Thank you very much.
Thank you.